Good morning, thank you. This is a great turnout. It's as usual. We have these great turnouts. I know, well, you're all here for Rob and Alex, so I'll introduce them very quickly. Obviously, this subject is succession planning. I think you all know what it's about, but we were talking, and it's really more about how you should be running your business anyway to make it attractive and to be attractive, and right? Okay, so to my right, Alex Ocsai, owner and co-founder of Meadowtown Realty. He can't talk yet because I have the mic. So we're gonna attack today's subject from two sides, and though Alex and Rob will both be able to chime in on any question. But Alex's focus is going to be more on the retirement side. So what does that look like? How the transition? How long does it take? How well do you want to be organized? And to Alex's right is the famous Rob Kelly. Yeah. I know he's famous because I talked to you all on the phone, and everybody said that they'd done a deal with Rob. But Rob, the reason Rob is on this panel today was actually we have been talking about different agents that have been looking for succession plans, and some are organized, some are not. And just like when I invited Jeff onto the panel, I was talking to Rob about how I wanted to do this discussion, and he said, I want to be on that. So it worked out really well for me, because I didn't have a guest, and so it worked out really well. So Rob is going to, has a unique position where he has thought about his own succession plan, but he's also somebody that's attractive to a lot of people that are looking to retire. So he has people approaching him. So I'm very grateful that he's on here to talk about how he has structured his business and what systems he has in place in order to make people come to him. So thank you, both of you.
Thank you.
I'm going to pass the mic over to Alex to see if he has something to add, because I probably didn't introduce him correctly.
He's the only guy in the room that can pronounce my name correctly. Yeah. So no, it was perfect.
Siri calls it Ocsai.
I know. When I have to call my son, I have to say Ocsai, otherwise it won't dial him. So welcome everybody. This is a very interesting topic, and I think Rob and I met last week to talk about sort of our thoughts, and we're very much aligned. And we're going to talk about the things that should be in place, some of the things you should be looking for as the sort of successor and the person looking to phase eventually out of their business. And they're remarkably aligned. And so we'll also talk around some financials and some different approaches. And Rob will probably surprise us with some unique perspectives that I think you'll get a lot out of. So thank you for being here.
I'm here for the mistakes I've made, just so you know.
Good. All right, well, let's just get started quickly. I actually don't really know where to begin, so we might dip and weave a little bit. But I'm gonna start with Alex, talking about some people that are looking to pass on their business or transition out. So Alex, when you've been meeting with people over the last 20 years, let's just start with timelines first, and then we'll get into who you should look for. But in terms of timelines, sometimes people will have something that comes up where all of a sudden it's an immediate timeline. But if you can plan this, and somebody says, I've got 5 years left in the tank, or 7 years, or 1 year, or 6 months, ideally, what kind of timeline do you think that some people should be looking at?
Good question. Longer is better. The last minute is more of a scramble, and you're hoping things are going to work out. Typically, the person who's moving out of the business will stay 2 to 5 years max afterwards. And so in order to do that, there needs to be some transition time so that the clients end up coming with you. Typically, if it happens really quickly, the clients that you're hoping to acquire, the business you're hoping to acquire, probably already knows another agent. And so if the agent of choice, retires, and it happens too quickly, and there's not a proper transition and introduction and all of those little nuances, it's very likely that those clients will not come along with the lead agent who's doing that. So I would say ideally 5 years ahead is good, 3 will do.
And from your whether recent experience or not, Rob, do you find that the people approaching you are looking at that timeline, or is it, what are you seeing?
It depends, right? I mean, it depends on, sometimes people fall ill, right? Somebody has a heart attack or things can happen, and all of a sudden they find themselves unable to trade anymore, right? So those people they're stuck having to do it very quickly. But for people that are healthy and looking down the road, I absolutely agree. It's a multiple year process that you need to be thinking about. And you need to be thinking about who as well. Mm-hmm. Not just when, but who. I mean, that's a really, really key factor in this. Timing and the person or team that you're going to be receiving or giving to.
You actually segued into my next question perfectly.
Come on,
great.
What did you expect?
And we didn't rehearse this at all. But when if somebody's looking to retire, should they be looking to a team or an individual? So, for example, if somebody's an individual, is it better that they look to an individual or look to a team? Does it matter? This one's open to both of you.
I don't think it matters at all. I think it's who's going to serve your clients and who's going to net you the most money in the end, really, right? Serving clients is very important though too, right? I mean, we build our business on the integrity and service to our clients. We should be, and I wouldn't want my business going to somebody that's just a, like, wham, ma'am, thank you, ma'am agent. I want somebody that's going to be caring for those clients that I've nurtured for 20 years,
I would agree. Fit is an important thing. And there was something I think you might consider asking, should you be from the same brokerage if you're doing that? And I would say the transition would be a lot easier if you had common colleagues, common processes within the brokerage, the way of doing business, the level of service that's expected from people within that brokerage should be similar. It'll just give you more continuity if that were to happen, for sure.
A stronger foundation, for sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. That was one of my questions, so good. This is flowing nicely. I'm gonna interrupt the flow for a second. I see people standing in the back. This is not a comedy show. I'm not gonna pick on you if you're in the front, but there are seats in the front if you'd like a seat. In terms of, so we've talked about whether they should be a team, individual. In terms of value, I know that this is a question that I was getting a lot in terms of feedback or something that people were looking for. There's often different ways to value a database. Some people think that maybe it should be sold for a price up front. Some people think that there should be a referral fee based on transactions. Let's deal with the idea of paying for it up front first. So, sorry, did you?
No, I'll let Alex take that one first.
Okay, so we'll let Alex take that one. And is there a formula for it? And then we'll ask Rob if he would, if that's something that would be appealing to him. Would you pay for something up front, or is that something different?
Talk about being put on the spot. There's no limit to the amount of ways you could structure this. But typically, this kind of business, the revenue is based on future performance, not past performance. And so past performance will give you a guide of what to expect, but it's the transition that's going to really affect the purchase price. So if you look at this sort of business, there's, of course, a factor of goodwill. So there should be some value put to it for the amount of history and the type of earnings that they've had over the years. But really, it's an earn-out on future earnings that have come in from that database. So you could, I would now draw a fork in the road and say, the one way you could do it is say, okay, let's do a valuation of it like it's a business. And say, we'll take the net earnings based on how the lead agent operates their business, and you, let's say, call it a 3-year or 4-year earn-out, and you'd say, okay, it's worth X amount of dollars. And so once the referrals end, or the purchase price reaches whatever that was, the fixed purchase price, and then the referrals might end. The other way to do it is say, well, I think I'd like it to last a little longer. I don't need to set a fixed price today. And so we'll just do it for a term. So it'll last for, let's say, X years, 5 years. And so, you can't hear me? So,
There you go.
yeah.
Oh, I can't hear Alex.
Jason's a little loud anyway, so. So I don't think there's a black and white answer. Small unmarked bills is good. But really you're looking at it like you're buying a business. And there's lots of approaches. We've done it with existing teams. We've done it in acquiring brokerage. And really it's just a small version of buying a brokerage. You look at how the business is run. You hope that the person who is the lead stays for a long time. And in fact, it would have to be part of the deal. And even the earnout and the payment would be concurrent with the amount of time that the lead agent would stay. If anyone wanted to get into the details of how we would break it down and come into those formulas, I'm happy to talk to you personally about it.
And I think everybody's business might not be worth something up front. That's my opinion. It just might not have that value, right? And conversely, value can be subjective sometimes. When you're bringing something really huge to the table that's somewhat unique, which not many of us have, right? The most things we're bringing to the table as value is a really, really well organized CRM. But if you have a unique value, for example, the Charltons with their Milton Daily Homes. I mean, how many people subscribe to that? 6,000. 6,000, goes out daily. The readership is incredible. The response, no doubt, and the ROI on that is probably very incredible. So that's a kind of a unique value that I think somebody buying a business that has something like that really has to consider. But not every business is worth paying up front for. I just took one that I didn't pay anything up front. It's just referral.
Rob, you want to buy it? I'll sell it to you.
I couldn't afford the Charltons.
Okay, so let's talk about the referrals then and how that works. Obviously, it's going to be different for everybody, and you don't have to tell us, what the referral is for the one you recently took. But what does that look like? Would you normally agree to a referral ongoing for forever or for the rest of their life, or is it a sliding scale where the referral fees transition out?
So I think it depends on how big that business is that you're taking on. I really do. If it's a small database, yeah, you could probably open it up to infinity, and it's not going to really make a big difference. But when you've got a pretty reasonable sized business and you're taking over, I think you do have to scale it. Mm-hmm. And I think, in my opinion, whether you're paying up front or not, I think 25% referral on a purchase or listing when you're taking over a business is ample. Mm-hmm. It's very reasonable.
Yeah.
When you think about the costs to do a listing, what's the difference of me referring Mel a deal, or me referring, or somebody bringing on business to me and me paying them 25% referral? It's the same thing.
That sounds reasonable to me. So if somebody might retire in their 60s, still have 20, 30 years or more today left of their life of leisure and the golf course, assuming that you had those people for another 30 years, would you, if they, the people that bought and you gave 25% 5 years ago, and then they're going to sell and they buy again, are you continuing to give that 25%?
Whatever's in the agreement, right?
Yeah.
I mean, absolutely. I mean, if there's multiple deals happening throughout, it's obviously it's a referral.
Yeah. And Alex, over the last 20 years, is that what you're seeing, or what other, are there different structures that you've seen?
I would say the key moving factor is engagement from the person who's selling their database. So if they're still face forward, they're still being in touch with people, I would agree with you 100%. But if they're sort of wanting to just fade out of the picture and not be involved and not be in touch and not have their face on the marketing that goes to the database, then I think that you would likely look at a sliding scale after a period of time. Because the stickiness is really the person being still engaged and still giving the impression that they are sort of involved or touching the transaction of those past clients.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cost, though, goes to the receiving team or agent, right? So that's,
Sure, yeah.
that's a serious consideration, too, right? I mean, they can be involved. And I mean, to what end? I mean, if I was going to leave the business, how involved do I want to be? I want to leave the business. You know? I mean, I think the first 12 months is the most crucial time for transitioning or merging, right? I really do. I think you got to have lots of hits and lots of discussions with your database, with their database when you bring on their database that, hey, we've merged, we're together, but we know that merge is not forever. We don't tell them that, but we just want to make sure we're embracing that agent into our corral, and that their database now knows that Rob Kelly's partnering with X.
What does that merge look like? Is it simply an announcement? Is it ongoing marketing campaigns? What does it look like over the first year or 2 years?
All of the above. There's obviously an announcement, an excited announcement, and then you need to be in touch with them digitally, in print. I'd say, every 6 weeks, at least every 2 months throughout that process, and 2 months isn't frequent enough, I don't think, to let that database know that Rob Kelly and Pinder Sig are now together. Yeah. Because it's got to resonate with them really quick.
Pinder liked the sound of that.
Pinder retiring?
Haven't checked the lotto numbers.
He drives 2 Porsches. He's not retiring.
Same time, it's a scene, you know.
Okay, this actually leads to, I'm going to have to steer back to what I was talking about before, but something you had mentioned caught my attention in terms of, keeping in touch every 6 weeks. So obviously you must have systems in place. So without talking about your systems for a second, let's talk about maybe who you would be looking to leave your database to. What is the first question you would ask, and what's the first thing that you need to see?
First, I think there's a couple that are equally as important. You have to be giving your business somebody that understands database management, has a strong CRM, that has a history of managing that CRM very well, that isn't going to be overwhelmed by taking on my 600 whatever database. You know what I mean? You have to be very comfortable with that. And equally important to me is, what are you charging commission? Because if I'm only getting 25%, you better be charging full pop.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give my business to you if you're 3.5%er. Simple as that.
Yeah.
It's a money decision. It's a business decision, right? So I would check the history on that agent and find out how strong they are in their commission. And that would be a key point for me.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. So, in terms of those systems, do you look to see if what they're doing falls in line with what you're doing already, or do you just analyze what they're doing, and would you just make a leap of faith that it's working, or would still work with the people that they're inheriting from you?
Yeah, I think people that are managing their databases are probably doing a lot of the same things. People that are doing it the right way. And that's the thing about this. I'm going to go off track. You might have to bring me back on here. But the thing about this, I think was alluded to before, was everybody should be doing this right now. I don't care if you're brand new in a business. This is all about running your business properly, right? Having a really strong database. having great integrity, being known in the business as somebody that's trustworthy, holding on to your commission. These are the things that make a good business, right? It's got nothing to do with succession. So do it now, and you can be set up. Where was I?
Some of the questions that you would ask, which you answered, you're going to talk about their systems and their database, how it's organized. In terms of receiving a database, how are they integrated exactly the way that they would be with your own database? How do you mark them to track which one is yours, which one is somebody else's?
So let's talk about that, let's talk about receiving somebody's business. I recently took over somebody's database, leaving the business, and I had an affection for this person. Senior agent, been around a long time, lovely person, super trustworthy, and I know that they had vetted several other agents and ended up choosing me. So I think in the excitement and believing that, well, this person's been around for a long time, probably President's Gold, 10 years or something like that, maybe a little better than that, and in and around there. Not bad, lots of tenure in the business. And I was like, I'm in, What's 150 in the database, which isn't a huge database. You can talk about database in a second too, because databases should not be 10,000 people. Databases need to be cleared up every 6 to 12 months. And there's so much fluff in databases that you guys should be just keeping it very, very simple. But anyways, okay, 150, no problem. Claim to be super, super organized with a database. So we meet, and it's a briefcase of files. Oh, no. And the database is, it includes people that they met at an open house 6 years ago. Okay? No filing system, nothing digital. But I'm so nice. I'm like, okay, I'm in. Like I didn't want to, hurt their feelings or anything. But this was a case where all of these things were not. Like I was, and I'm usually so critical about the analytical and critical about the business decisions I make. I was like, come on, how do you do that, right? So it's literally more work than it's probably going to be worth. There's people that are dead on the list. There's a multitude of people that have moved, right? So the list gets whittled down to 70 of past clients, which is pretty small, anyway. So you'll learn, right? I mean, I learned a lot from that one. Just you don't go in just trusting that everything's going to be great. You need to see it. You need to analyze the database. You need to, I should have done all those things before I put my hand up, And just because she's a sweetheart, I should not have just jumped in like that.
It's also a good case for why you should start thinking about this early, if possible. Like we said, sometimes circumstances happen and you get in the way, but if somebody's thinking about it, they can start having a conversation with us or you or anybody, and you can start analyzing their systems, and they have time to steer that ship and increase value, and it probably will help them earn more even before they actually transition. I've been ignoring you for a few minutes. Do you have anything you'd like to add?
That's only because I talk a lot.
Okay, so I'm going to get into the kind of touchy question of from the side of the people that are looking for people to maybe inherit their database. Much like door knocking or cold calling is different, but if you're door knocking, you don't want to just knock on the door and say, you're looking to buy or sell? You're looking to buy or sell? Is there an elegant way to start these conversations or start to see who might be thinking of retiring? Because instead of just calling up and say, hey, is there anything going on with your life that you're thinking of retiring?
Thank God.
So call your broker of record. A lot of times we have these conversations well in advance of it being near the time. And so to the benefit of the seller and the buyer, it's good to let people know, people who are not going to share your private information, that this is what you're thinking of down the road. If we know that, it makes it so easy to maybe spend some time thinking about who might be the right person to dovetail into the other person's business. And then you think about, okay, so from a bird's eye view, it's easy for us to see the similarities between people and how they operate. And it would be very timely to do that ahead of the 11th hour. And so if we know that one of you wants to phase out in 3 to 5 years, then we can spend some time with you saying, okay, so how does that really look like? Does that mean you want to be out of the business in 3 to 5 years, or you want to start your transition in 3 to 5 years? And there's all sorts of nuance, but there's also a whole bunch of due diligence that we can cause the buyer and seller, but mostly the seller, to look in the mirror and say, okay, so if you were looking at your own business, what do you really have to sell? And getting at it early will enhance what you have to sell, for sure. Hope that helps. From someone acquiring, you don't just want to make a decision in 10 seconds. You do want to do your due diligence. Sorry. But, so the truth of the matter is, had I been in your shoes, I would have felt and done pretty much the same thing. And so you're either in good or bad company. I'm not sure right now. But sometimes and I'm sure you're going to benefit from that. And sometimes you do things that, you don't always do all your perfect homework, and you kind of cross your fingers and hope it's going to be okay. And if it's by referral, there's more work ahead, I guess, but it'll probably turn into database enhancement for you. But I think the key is spend some time thinking about it, spend some time talking about it to someone who's going to hold your privacy privately, and think about how you're going to integrate if you're the buyer, and how you're going to sell if you're the seller. But I can tell you, it's the buyer who gets the savings at the end of the day. Because so if, for instance, Rob is acquiring someone's business, and there's already a bunch of systems that the person you're acquiring has in place and you have them in place, well, you've got room to increase your bottom line big time, because you don't need all the duplication. And so one database can be merged into the other and just tagged separately. There might be suppliers that you have duplicates. There might be an employee where you have duplication. There's a lot of places to enhance the value, and that does fall to the buyer 100% of the time. And
that's really the basis of the value of your business. I don't care what anybody says, is a really strong database. And you're absolutely right. If I'm operating a reasonable sized database and operating it very well, say, again, 500-600 quality people in the database, for me to take on honestly another 5, it's a piece of cake. Mm-hmm. The hardest part is data entry, right? I mean, actually, no, you're right, you could probably merge it, but otherwise it's just a little bit of separate marketing to that group for the first 12 to 18 months, and then they just go on your regular marketing, right? Mm-hmm. So, but you got to have these things built up already. You guys, if you don't have a good CRM, you gotta, you don't work 20 years to not be able to have somebody you don't work 20 years for your business not to be appealing for somebody to at least want to take it over, mm-hmm. right?
And for those of you that don't have a CRM yet, don't forget, we've got Sphere for free. I see a hand up. Yes?
So I would think that if you had a database that could demonstrate you had a high referral rate, that might be a little more attractive. For example, that if you were able to track that and demonstrate it, which I believe Sphere probably could, if you can, what about from the brokerage end when it comes to transactions? Like, if you're an agent who's easy to get out of business, you're maybe not going to be as attentive to all those transactions that may be happening that would involve a referral, depending on how they're tracked. Does the brokerage have a mechanism when it comes to deals to flag those transactions, those clients?
So before I answer that, I think we have to ask the question of the integrity of the person that you're partnering with, and not relying on the brokerage to be hunting for a transaction that came out of the seller's database that now belongs to the buyer and the person didn't get paid. So that's my high level answer is if you're...
Trust.
Yeah, trust is really important. And quality control. So yes, we do have a mechanism to take a whole database, put it into our system, and when a trade record shows up with that person's name on it, it'll pop up to us.
That is cool, right? So that, you want to trust, sorry for interrupting, you need to trust the person, but there's a mechanism in there that it's a fail-safe. If it's one of your referrals, or if it's one of your database that I sold to Jeff, sold my business to you, it pops up.
Yeah.
Pops up, it's
Absolutely.
automatic.
Absolutely.
Sorry for interrupting, I love that, I think it's great.
That's definitely not an interruption. It's a good feedback. Yes?
I have a question. I'm not from the brokerage, but thank you.
Glad you're here.
Second time here.
When are you coming over?
All right. The question is, obviously, a newsletter won't cut it with your pipeline. Let's say you're retiring in 2 years' time, but you know that today, 2 years, 15 people are moving. They're like, I'm upgrading, I'm downgrading, I'm moving down to Canada, whatever. So those meetings will be in person with your successor rather. So what type of percentages do you think that you'll be contributing your time, and how do you plan that? You say, listen, I want to be done in 2 years, I'm down for Florida, but in those 2 years I need to have 50 meetings in person with these 15 sellers or whatever to make sure that Jeff and I is one. So my question is that something that you thought about beforehand? Or will you be looking for that? Okay, look, these people, we got to go in for meetings the entire year, make sure that it handles over smoothly? Or do you rely on just on newsletters and your own, what's the weightage required? I'm guessing you have a plan or something like that in your mind, right?
I think it depends on the person that's leaving the business, how involved they want to be.
Good.
I think that for me, I'd rather handle it myself, to be honest with you. And I know that Alex has mentioned, the seller being involved in the business for some time. Would it hurt for them to reach out to their database a couple of times the first 12 months and have that conversation, say, hey, don't forget, I'm with the Rob Kelly Group, we're working hard to service you in your area, blah, blah, blah. I think it depends.
Yeah, I would say each of those conversations are very important. Hey, listen, I'm here, and this is also someone who's going to be here with me.
Yeah, I do think that, there's only so many times though that people in your database want you to call them in the year, right? So there's so many other means for us to touch them, right? Pads, calendars, monthly digital newsletters, and the list goes on and on, right?
One more question that ends with, it depends. And so if it's a really huge database, you'll likely, the seller's job is to make sure they reach out personally to their database and do a soft introduction to your A clients. So the ones that are, repeats, the one that refer you regularly, I would suggest that it be somehow an in-person meeting to your A's. And I'm not, if you've got lots of A's, that's great. But you want to treat them differently. With everybody else, I think the seller, it's got to be their obligation to reach out to them and speak to every single person in that database in the first several months.
So as a buyer, then you need to have commitments. You can't just
100%.
fly off on me, look, you need to do these meetings, I need to be there, or tell me a record that they happened.
Sure.
So that when I say hi, it's not, oh, who?
And it doesn't have to be the same for everybody. So Rob, if you picked up a client that you've had for years and you transacted for their family, you've done all this stuff, you may go out for breakfast as a group or something like that. There's really key people that you want to make sure that you retain, and maybe those are the only people long term that still give you a call and say, Rob, what do you think? My former partner, Gloria, you all know her. For years, and still to this day, people call her and ask her, "Do you think I should do it now?" Or, it's funny. And she's got that glue with people, and not with everyone, but with long-term clients, they're gonna come back to you and say, you helped me 1,000 times before. What do you think? So I think it depends again. There's a certain component that need high transition.
Yeah, I think there's some subjectivity to who the buyer and the seller are. As I say, sometimes the seller might just say, here, I don't want to have anything to do with this. I trust you, handle it your way, right? They might not want to have any involvement. Again, a lot of people do leave for health issues that they're just out of it. They're just out of the business, right? And so we just have to do what we can with and for them, to make sure they make as much money, even if they're not involved.
Yeah, Brock?
Sorry. Rob, in your experience, when you're buying a book, you do everything that you need to do and you're super diligent on it. Let's say you're buying a book that has a history of the last 10 years, it's done 30 deals a year. If you're doing everything that you need to do, because there must be a small percentage of people that just like you, that just like the person that you're buying the book off of, and maybe don't want to transition to you. What percent usually can you expect to be successful with? Does that make sense? So if you're buying a book that does 30 deals a year,
Yeah.
and you're doing everything that you need to do, are you finding you're getting 60% of that? Are you getting 80% of that? What does that usually look like?
80% return?
No, sorry.
80% of the 30 deals?
Actions that you were doing previously.
That might be pretty high.
Yeah, I wonder what that number would be.
Yeah, it's pretty hard to pinpoint a number there.
Yeah.
Listen, I think if you pick up a book of 200 pretty good people in a database, if you can do 15 deals a year off of that, I'd say you're doing pretty good.
Yeah, okay.
A number that I've run into a couple of times that says, so if the seller was doing a diligent job, there's a large percentage of people that want to deal with the seller. That's why they're dealing with this person. So 30 to 50% of the previous year's performance is probably more in line. And in the first year, I would say it could be higher. But I wouldn't budget higher than 50%, to be honest with you, if I was trying to make the math work.
So in terms of that introduction, which we covered a little bit, so you have an announcement. Would you ever think of having, say, an event or something more personal where people are coming in to meet you? Would you do a client event for maybe the A people or the top people in that database? Is that I'm spitballing ideas here.
Spitballing. Certainly you could do that. I don't do a lot of client events. I used to. I'm kind of veered away from them and geared my marketing in different directions. But I think that's a great way to intro, for sure. But it's a lot. If you're taking on a database, as Alex says, you'd probably only be inviting the AAAs.
Yeah.
Not the Zeds.
And what about somebody that's maybe looking for not a full step away from the business? I've come across this conversation a couple times. I don't know if you ever have. Say that somebody, they know they've got a few years left that they want to be involved before they step away completely, but they don't like both sides of the transaction. So for example, somebody might not, they might like working with buyers, but they don't want to deal with the cost of a listing or the staging that comes with it anymore. What would that look like to you? Is that something that would interest you in terms of somebody that still wants to be involved in half
So
of
I'm
their
taking on
transactions?
another buyer agent is what you're saying.
Pretty much, yeah. Well, that's one. The other side might be they like listings but not buyers. So what if they're stepping away but not 100% yet?
Yeah, I mean, again, I guess it depends on, do you want to take another team member in the fold? Really, because that's what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it gets a little muddied there. I'm sure there's a workaround.
Yeah.
But to me, it's like, I don't really necessarily need another team member that's not 100% into it.
Right. Okay. I've kind of worked through my questions, and we've started a Q&A. Unless either of you have something that you'd like to add, I'm going to open the floor a bit more formally to a Q&A, and we'll pass the mic to the audience. Is there anything that you guys would like to add?
I just can't stress enough that this isn't like rocket science. This is do it now, stay strong on your commission, get a great database, make your business sellable. Don't just be flying by the seat of your pants with papers flying all over the place. Have a good digital database. Show history of contacts on that database. It's very, very easy. Managing your database creates a ton of business for you if you're doing it right. And again, I alluded to it before, is vet your database. Vet it all the time. Because somebody that sold with you 6 years ago and then just listed the house with somebody else should not be in your database. They should not be.
No, I agree 100%. When Rob and I sat down to talk about this, by the time we left, we thought, well, this is simple. Just do what you were supposed to do when you started this business. And if you do all those things, you're going to have something that's saleable. So now all you have to do is think about the fit and who's going to treat your clients like you do. And I know many of us will say, well, nobody's going to treat my clients the way I do. But there's lots of people who will. And so that's really the messaging. Coming out, you're ahead of so much of the agent population right now because they're not sitting here today thinking about this even before thinking of buying or before thinking of selling. So you're at an advantage, I would say.
So check out my affiliate marketing link full of CRMs. Okay, yes, Jacob. I'm going to get you to talk into the mic so that it'll go to the camera.
No problem. It seems like integrity and trust, of course, are the foundations of this process. And the more trust between the seller and their clients, and the more rapport built, the more successful you're going to be on what Brock had mentioned there in the transition of clients. If Rob is someone that I trust 100% wholeheartedly, and he's telling me that this next agent is going to do the same thing, then I think there's a better chance of me sticking long term, and that it really depends on the relationship that seller has with their clients and the rapport he's built. So I think that's a key factor there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Chuck. Just going to pass it to you so your question goes into the...
Chuck's loud enough. He doesn't need a mic.
It's for the recording.
Yeah, exactly. I'm curious how your answers would change if, let's say it's a team member that we have that maybe wants to become the team leader, and also family. How does that change? Right? Alex, your son, we've talked about, like, he's getting into the business. Like, is it the same as just an agent in the brokerage, or are there differences in those scenarios?
Well, maybe you could speak to the family, but I'll speak to the team. I mean, I think that, if you're considering handing over the baton to somebody in your team, I think everything still applies, right? Is that person that as like-minded as you in how they treat the clients? Are they holding on to commission? And for me, how I look at this is handing it off to somebody on your team. I do believe that somebody that I would want to sell my business to has to be a good listing agent. Not a good buying agent, a good listing agent. I think that's very, very important. Because as we know, list to last, right? And so if you're listing properties, if you're a good listing agent, a lot of those calls are going to be for listings. And if you can't capture the listing, well, you've just pissed away a lot of money, right? Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Any other questions from
Maybe the family,
Yep.
the family aspect?
Oh, yeah, family aspect.
I need a mic. So that's a rumor about Daniel that I've started. No, he's finishing his degree, but he's also doing the courses. We're not sure where that's going to go. I let him know that getting involved with the family business does not involve a VTB. So he's got to figure out. But we've worked with families before, and you have to be even more careful that everything, when someone's transitioning from their business to family members, that everything is done the way it should have been done, and it was done, because that's how the business got to where it was. And it's great to put your signature on someone's business, especially in a family, and say, okay, I've always wanted to change this or do that. That's great, but the integrity of what got it there needs to remain there. That would be some really good information. I think the same thing would go for if it was somebody who had been with you and wanted to inherit your business or buy your business. There's certain things that you, until you're paid out, have to remain the same, and they can grow from there. Does that help your question at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I'm interested in some businesses that don't do as well when the parent leaves and the kids. And sometimes we see like a Matthew Regan where it goes to the next level.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm kind of looking at like, what's the difference, right? Obviously the buyers is a big part of that and how they approach things.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I would guess, though, that if they were missing all the systems, like the seller, but they had deep relationships, then you could really lever that with systems.
So if you were to choose between the systems and the relationships, you would put more value in the relationship?
Depends on the business. So if it was I think it would be really hard to be a big business that you're looking at if there weren't the systems in place. So I would think that there's agents and brokers out there that have had long-term relationships with clients, intergenerational ones, that could be really high value, and they might not have all the systems in place. So you'd probably both benefit for you being the buyer of that kind of business, for sure.
And Matt's an anomaly.
Yes.
I think Emerson had a question in the back here.
I just want to know, in terms of Rob, how can you keep that inertia that you always, because it can happen that, for example, my son, I'm just trying to push him to the business. His name is Emerson as well. So at least I always say, I got something. At least I got something. Because it happens that, that lady says, you know what? I want Rob Kelly. He's a sweet talker. He's a master negotiation. I need Rob. If Rob sent me someone from his team, I'm not happy. I'm not comfortable. So how can we nurture the knowledge that we have? Obviously, we put everything in our team, but that is a key point when we're trying to, to keep that relation, because people want to work with you. People feel more comfortable with you. So it's a hard part that, our team, I always trying to, obviously, I'm not a sweet talker, I'm not probably as negotiations as a Rob Kelly, but I need to have that thing that telling the people, listen, I got the rest of the team. These guys are tremendous. We have, my knowledge of 20-something years. Every single day I'm trying to teach them properly. They are the one who's going to be doing exactly the same as I've been doing for these 20 years. So that's kind of a thing that I would like to know, how you nurture that relation, how you feed that trust that people can keep, doing business with Rob Kelly. And when Rob Kelly has, some team that is going to be basically taking part of that.
But you do that right now, Emerson, right?
Yes.
You're doing that right now with your team. They're calling Emerson and you're sending somebody else out, right?
Yes. Well, that is the part that sometimes I'm not able to do everything. And sometimes people say, no, but I want you to come over. I want you to be in the open house, and that is it's a hard part for us. Sometimes we do, family, we want to do things and take time for ourselves. And obviously, I'm 52 years old now, and I feel like, it's probably, I don't have the same energy. I don't have the same patience with clients. And even some people say, but why you don't do rentals? I don't do rentals. Last time I said, I don't even know how to type, an offer. But it's something that, and this is the reality. So that is a part that I always try to curious how you keep that energy with the clients. How do you keep the trust that even if I'm not doing your open house, my team is going to be able to do everything for you, same as I'm doing it, for this time for you.
I mean, it's a great question. I think it's all set up from the beginning. When you first meet them and do that listing presentation, and you sell you and your group, right? I don't think it's something where it's at your listing appointment you're saying Emerson. You should be talking about the Vivas Group, right? And if you're talking more in general like that, but you're maybe doing a presentation where somebody that's as strong as you in your presentation is doing it, then they're not surprised if somebody else shows up for the open house, right? I'm like you, though, to be honest with you. There's one reason why I didn't grow my team very large. It's because I am a micromanager. I don't think anybody can do things as well as I can. And it's to a fault, right? It's a big fault of mine. And Emerson, there's lots of people that can do things just as well as you and I. And we got to trust them to do that. And I think it's just the same as, when you're selling a business that, you obviously have to sell that person that you're bringing, you have to sell that person that you're selling the business to your database. You really have to sell them on that and say, this is a team effort. We're merging. You have to talk like that. You have to talk in those terms. Don't say, well, I'm leaving the business, and, you're shooting yourself in the foot, as you know. So I don't know if that helps, but. And how do I keep my energy up? I just look at you, man.
I thought he was his son.
And 52, you're young.
So vetting, part of this is vetting what if you're a buyer, you need to know one really important thing, or what are the things that the seller does themselves. So are they the one that meets all the clients? Are they the one are they the rainmaker? Or what do they do? Are they the face? Do they manage the team? There's so many different ways of doing it. And so if you have people like Rob and Emerson, and you're trying to acquire their business and database, you really have to figure out how you're going to address that the clients get Rob and Emerson. And that's something that you have to figure out how to do. And there's some people just do everything. Some people do more than anybody on the team. If we're talking about a team, if they're a solo agent, they do absolutely everything. They're the quarterback for everything, including the deep relationship with the client. So if you can't figure out a way to address that, you're going to have trouble converting them and turning them into referrals.
Thank you. Any other questions? I'm going to single Melissa for a second. You sent me some questions. Did we do them justice, or they've been answered?
It's a big topic with chairman's people right now. There's a lot of people acquiring other people's business to grow. So something I'm very interested in.
Yeah.
Mergers or leaving?
Like succession, like they'll take an agent who's looking to phase out. They'll be on their team for 2 years with a plan, and then they're phased out, and then they're paying for a referral fee. So that's there's some teams that have taken on 3-4 agents in the past decade, and their business is just
It's an ongoing discussion for as long as I've been in the business, is that why is it some people are able to sell their book and get residuals, and why is it that others just quit? And I don't know the answer for sure, except that I think planning is the big thing, and accepting the fact that you're not going to be running this business forever, and so you have to do things so that you're not the only person who knows what's going on. And because if you are, and just one day you're thinking like, that's the last straw, and I'm just going to wind down, then you don't have an asset to sell, and that's so the planning, I think, is big in acknowledging that you need to have an exit. One of the first things they tell you is when you start a business is how you're getting out. And so, no, seriously, and it's true. So are you going to just leave everything? And you've seen businesses where their leases expire, the kids don't want to take care of the business, everything's run by mom and pop type of thing, and they just wind it up and they retire and they're happy. And so be it. But I think they're leaving a lot of valuable rewards after putting in all the years by not planning ahead. So as to Rob's way of saying, do everything that you should be doing from the beginning and do a great job at it, and your business will be attractive to acquire.
Thank you. So unless there's more questions that we've missed, I think we're going to wrap it up here. Anybody? Last chance? Going once? Going twice? All right. Thank you very much, everybody. We really enjoyed this session. There's some thank you to Rob and Alex. There are some snacks and drinks in the bullpen, so please stick around, mingle, network, come say hi to me if I haven't met you yet.
Drinks. I'd come to these things more often.